To you about the shutdown because the government is still shut down. But love to get your take on kind of just the latest news coming from President Trump's social media about potentially massive tariffs on China, potentially not meeting with President Xi of China at the conference coming up in a couple weeks in South Korea. What's the feeling in D.C. just about this ongoing trade war?
So I think this was a little bit of a surprise, and I think this could be a little bit of a wake-up call for the markets here. I mean, there's a lot riding on this meeting with President Xi in South Korea. I mean, just talking to our ag analysts who are looking at the soybean space, there's a lot here that the markets want to see, and they want to see stability and they want to see clarity coming out of that meeting. Now, in terms of this tariff threat, call it, that President Trump is saying that potentially more tariffs on China is coming, we just should note to our clients is that there's this idea of an IEEPA tariff versus a Section 232 tariff. Now, IEEPA is what's currently going through the courts, and we anticipate that the Supreme Court is going to strike down President Trump's usage of IEEPA tariffs. But it should be noted is that the United States also launched what's called a Section 232 investigation of rare earths in China back in April. So even if the Supreme Court challenges this IEEPA tariff, President Trump does have the authority to move forward with China tariffs in this matter related to rare earths because of that 232 investigation. The investigation takes time, but obviously this is something that President Trump has a higher legal ground doing. So we definitely need to watch out for whatever comes from the next couple of weeks.
What is our understanding of the state of negotiations between the U.S. team and the Chinese team just to even get that Xi Jinping-Donald Trump summit taking place?
It's challenging. So I was talking to our geoeconomics team that covers a lot of the geopolitical negotiations that take place between separate countries. And the story that we essentially learned is that it's very challenging because President Trump offers very much a carrot and stick strategy when conducting these negotiations. I mean, obviously, just a few minutes later after he posted about China, he posted another Truth Social post praising Vladimir Putin in terms of other context of negotiations and discussions they've had. So I will say is that this came on a Friday. This obviously will warrant a response from China. And we still have plenty of time until this South Korea summit takes place at the end of the month. So I wouldn't be surprised if you see the more carrot portion of that strategy play out next week. And we've often seen this with President Trump just with anything related to tariffs. You have an announcement, you have the Truth Social post, and then over the next couple of days, more information trickles out that actually warrants more moderation. So it will be very important to watch what happens because, this is not related to the government shutdown. And a lot of the power here, pretty much all the power here, relies on President Trump's ideas and thoughts.
And a sell-off in the stock market accelerating here. S&P is off 100 points. That's 1.5%. The NASDAQ off about 495 points. That's 2.1%. And the Dow Jones Industrial is off 440 points. That's almost 1%. So the sell-off is accelerating here in the morning trading session. Nathan, let's get back to your favorite topic, I'm sure, which is the shutdown, the day 10 or 11. I kind of lost count here. Now we come to the weekend here. Any reason to believe something will happen over the weekend?
So I don't think anything is going to happen over the weekend. I mean, both sides are going home for the weekend, just to cool off a little bit. But when they come back, we do have a massive pressure point that the U.S. military will not get paid on October 15th. And you are beginning to see cracks amongst some members of both parties that are starting to say, hey, maybe we should be reaching the point where we should be trying to figure out what a solution is. If there is a solution, it's most likely going to be, when there's a solution, because I don't think the government's going to remain closed forever, it'll be a reopening of the government.
Nathan.
Exactly. But I think there's also going to be an agreement to deal with these Obamacare subsidies. Now, what that agreement on the Obamacare subsidies looks like, if it's a one-year extension or if it's income-based limits, that's still to be determined. But you are going to see policymakers return from the weekend and come back here next week saying that maybe we should actually start looking for a solution here. I do believe that a solution is going to be found amongst the moderate senators, the bipartisan group of senators that have been talking about this. I think they are going to come up with their own solution. I think they're going to hand it off to leadership and say, here's what we have found. But the big caveat here is that if there is a deal on Obamacare subsidies and the Senate approves it, it then goes to the House, and there's this rule called the Hassert Rule, in which the Speaker of the House cannot bring something to the floor. It's an unofficial rule. It's not written down. The Speaker can't bring anything to the House floor unless the majority of his party or her party supports it. And so if there is a deal on Obamacare subsidies and Speaker Johnson doesn't agree with it, if he adheres to the Hassert Rule, we're right back where we are and the shutdown continues.
Interesting that the House does play a role here after our talking about how it's all in the hands of the Senate, right? So, Nathan, what will you be watching for this weekend? Is this something where the negotiators, the lawmakers are actually going to do something this weekend and try to get us out of this jam by next week?
So I'm going to look at two things, and one is the air traffic controllers and very much anecdotally what happens at the airports, because talking to anybody, they're all saying we're going to get to the airport early or there's delays and so forth. So the air traffic controllers, I think, is going to be an important thing to watch. The second thing I'm going to look for is additional polling data, because that's what I think members of both sides of the aisle are looking at the moment, is they're just waiting to see, you know, when Senator Schumer says every day gets better for us, they're looking at the polling data. And if the polling data comes back and starts to tip one side or the other, and right now it suggests that more independents are blaming Republicans than Democrats for this, I think that's going to be the impetus to get these policymakers to say we need a deal. And I would also just add out for a third, you know, there's been discussions about trying to extend military pay.
Yep. All right, Nathan, great stuff as always. Really appreciate you taking the time to help us out here as we navigate through all of these geopolitical issues. Nathan Dean, Senior Policy Analyst for Bloomberg Intelligence.